They left him with nothing. No rescue, no witness, no grave marker. Just a man bleeding out inside a tomb that was never supposed to be his ending. And the last sound he heard before the dark took him was silence, which is so much worse than screaming. But here's what they did not account for. Seo Joo-Heon does not accept endings that were written by someone else. He hit the ground of his past like a detonation. 15 years earlier, younger body, older eyes, and a memory so precise it was basically a weapon. The tombs had not appeared yet. The relics were still buried. The man who ordered his death was still just a powerful businessman who had not yet made his worst mistake. And Joo-Heon stood in the middle of all that untouched time and did not feel relief, did not feel gratitude, did not fall to his knees and thank whatever force had dragged him back. He felt the list activate. Every name, every face, every moment where someone chose ambition over loyalty and left him to pay the price. The list did not need to be written down. It was already engraved somewhere behind his eyes in the specific handwriting of a man who had died once and decided that the second life would be spent collecting every debt the first one accumulated. And he got to work. What most people miss about Joo-Heon's rise is that it was never about discovering his power. He already knew what he was capable of. The first timeline had shown him exactly how high his ceiling was, and had then shown him exactly what happened when you reach your ceiling while working for people who resented you for it. He was not on a journey of self-discovery. He was on a reclamation. Every skill he sharpened, every relic he seized, every enemy he outmaneuvered was simply him taking back what had always been his and adding interest for the years it was stolen. The relics came. The tombs cracked open across the world like old wounds. And Joo-Heon was already waiting at the door. He moved through the early tombs the way a man moves through a familiar house in the dark. No hesitation, no searching, just the absolute certainty of someone who had already walked these rooms before. While other raiders were still learning the rules, he was already rewriting them. While corporations and governments were scrambling to understand what the relics meant, he was already 3 moves ahead, collecting the ones that mattered and leaving the ones that didn't in ways that looked accidental to everyone watching. Nothing Joo-Heon does is accidental, and what he builds next, nobody saw coming. A team, of sorts, assembled not through trust, but through a calculation so cold it was almost elegant. Each person selected because of exactly what they could provide and exactly how useful they would remain, each relationship managed with the same precision he applied to the tombs themselves. He was not building a family. He was building a machine. And the machine had one purpose, one function, one destination that everything else was simply a road toward. But here is where the story quietly complicates itself. The people he assembled started to mean something. He would not say it. He would never say it. The version of Joo-Heon that came back from the grave had sealed that particular door from the inside and swallowed the key. Because in the first timeline, caring too visibly was exactly what had been used against him. Every person who had mattered to him had become a lever that his enemies pulled. So the second time, he built the walls first and let whatever human warmth remained operate only in the space behind them, invisible and protected and absolutely never acknowledged in a way that could be weaponized. But you could see it in the decisions that made no strategic sense, in the moments where the calculation paused and something else briefly ran the controls. In the way he protected certain people with a ferocity that went so far beyond utility that the math stopped working. The machine had a heart in it. He had just hidden it somewhere the enemies could not reach. This is where most people fall completely in love with Seo Joo-Heon. Not the power, not the schemes, not the jaw-dropping moments where he dismantles someone who thought they were untouchable. They fall in love in the quiet spaces, the flashes of the man underneath the armor, the evidence of grief that never performed itself, the accumulated proof that all of this, every brutal and ruthless and chaotic choice, was never really about winning. It was about what he lost. It was always about what he lost. Here's the thing about becoming unstoppable that the story never says directly, but shows in every chapter if you're paying attention. It costs exactly what you would least want to give. Joo-Heon's rise is not a triumph in the traditional sense. It is not the underdog climbing and finally earning his place. It is something more unsettling and more honest than that. It is a man who understood precisely what the world respected and decided to become that thing completely, regardless of what it required him to leave at the door. He left warmth at the door. He left patience. He left the version of himself that might have simply wanted a quiet life, a loyal crew, work that mattered without needing to destroy anyone to do it. He left the boy who trusted people before they earned it, because that boy was the reason he died the first time, and he could not afford to let that boy back, and no matter how loudly the situation asked for him. And he became something the world had no framework for. Not a villain. He never crossed the line of targeting the innocent, and there is a code buried inside the chaos that he maintains with more rigidity than anyone around him realizes. Not a hero. He is too aware of his own methods, too unapologetic about the damage they cause, too uninterested in being seen as good to qualify. Something between the two that lives in the specific territory where purpose is pure and method is merciless, and the combination produces results that nothing conventional could have achieved. That is the unstoppable the title promised you. Not strength, not power levels, not a system that kept leveling him up until he was untouchable. The thing that makes Seo Joo-Heon unstoppable is that he removed the mechanisms by which a person normally gets stopped. Doubt, fear, the need for approval, the hesitation that comes from caring what you look like when you make the hard call. He took all of it out, piece by piece, and replaced it with something leaner and more dangerous. Absolute clarity about what he was doing and exactly why. The why is the thing. Most unstoppable characters in Manhwa are driven by hunger, for power, for recognition, for the high of the next level. Joo-Heon is driven by a debt, a specific, itemized, non-negotiable debt to every person he failed in a timeline that only he remembers. And a debt, unlike hunger, does not plateau. Hunger can be satisfied, even temporarily. A debt to the dead has no ceiling. It simply accumulates interest until every account is settled. He will not stop until they are all settled. And anyone who has read far enough into Tomb Raider King knows exactly what that looks like. The relentlessness of a man who is not racing toward something, but refusing to stop moving away from the version of himself who was not enough the first time. Every victory is distance from that version. Every enemy destroyed is proof that the distance is growing. He is not becoming unstoppable. He already was. The betrayal did not create him. It simply removed the last reason he had to hold back. Here is the question I want you to answer honestly, because I think this one cuts deep. At what point in Joo-Heon's story did the man chasing revenge stop being the victim and start being something more dangerous than the people who wronged him? Is there a chapter, a moment, a single decision where the line moved? Drop it in the comments, because I have seen 100 different answers and not one of them is the same. And if this story hit the way it was supposed to, if you felt that shift somewhere